This episode of After Schmoe is going to be huge, Jay. There's two big reasons why. Are you ready for them?
Because we moved studios.
That's the second one. Oh. You spoiled it.
Okay. Did we move studios?
The first one is we're together, and we're usually not together when we record After Schmoe.
And Brett's on this episode.
No. The second big reason is we're actually recording this inside the brand new Collider studio.
Yeah.
Can't you tell?
Yeah, I can. You hear the echo, echo, echo. We've got a bunch of shit on the table.
Actually, you know what? Let's pack it up.
Wait, I actually have a question.
Let's go back to Kentucky.
Is Cal allowed at the new studio?
Okay, now we're back. We're in Jay's office. We're doing After Schmoe the right way. Feels good.
We've never done. Well, we've done this before. It's been a minute. It's been a long time.
It has been a long time.
Do people realize that we have been on video before?
I'm sure. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't think. Do we have a loyal fan base?
I don't know. You know what's funny is I'm like, so I'm like just now realizing that there's people that listen to us that don't normally communicate with us.
Yeah.
Like today, just some random new person was like, "Oh, I love this show."
Right.
I'm like, what?
That's great. That is great.
Absolutely.
But I feel like we don't have a concrete fan base that I'm aware of. Like, there's a couple people, and God love them, that comment every week on even Sight and Sound Weekly. Neil Varma, every single week, he comments on Sight and Sound Weekly. I don't know, but he's very punctual. He does a great job.
If you're listening to the show right now on podcast forum or on YouTube and you have never commented, I want you to comment right now. Just do it, okay? Before I even did YouTube, I don't think I ever left a YouTube comment.
I want to be friends with you.
Yeah.
Please comment.
Yeah.
That's why we do this. People are so concerned. Why do they always start the show with some kind of conversation? It's because I don't want to, bring my tie up all the way up to my neck and get straight to the point. This is After Schmoe. I'm Ryan Snelling.
Right. We want to get our pants off. We want to,
I'm relaxing.
Some air under our tank.
This is a personable show.
Yeah.
Like, it's just going to be me and Jay talking about Collider and Schmoes like nobody else can. And if we want to start off by just enjoying each other's company for 2 to 4 minutes. Welcome to After Harloff and Ellis. I'm taking my pants off. My name is Ryan Snelling.
My name's Jaye Williams, and I've never seen this place before. Why does it look so similar?
This week we're presented by Boost Mobile.
That's right. Not really.
Are
we getting money from Boost?
Like to shout out Boost Mobile. Yeah, I don't know. I thought about approaching Christian and being like, look, I have a YouTube channel. We have a YouTube channel. Excuse me. I got to get better at that. We have a YouTube channel. I know how to look at metrics.
Right.
Just hand me the money that After Schmoe makes on Escape Plus. And then I realized that even if he agreed to that, it would be like a residual check for doing 90210 in the 80s or 90s, whenever that was. He would be giving us like 82 cents a month.
That's why I don't want there to be an After Schmoe shirt on the the Schmoes Know TeePublic, because honestly, I just don't want to be bothered with all those $1 checks. I just don't want them.
Well, we now know that those designs partially go to the people that it's designed after.
That's what I'm saying.
Which is kind of weird.
Right.
Because, like, why should Makuga get rewarded for a Wildberries t-shirt that was made by someone else?
Right. I agree. Does
like, if we made the After Schmoe logo because we're the hosts of After Schmoe, that's one thing. But, like, you're just handing Makuga money for what reason now?
I hear you. Listen, here's how I want to. I don't know where this was on your rundown, but I just need to address something.
I threw the rundown away. This is just going to be.
We dropped. Well, you dropped, but it was coinciding with me also being involved with the show. We dropped a massive, massive, massive scoop / bomb on Schmoeville.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody fucking cared.
That is not true.
I did not mute the group. I commented on it. I did not mute it. And I feel like it just died. I feel like it just went away. People were like, oh, cool. It's like, this is what you people have been wanting.
No, hold on. this was the meat of the show. But okay, you brought it up now. Let's talk.
Oh, was it really going to be the meat of it?
Let's talk about it now.
We never talk about what we're going to talk about on here.
The take that you're talking about, the scoop.
Is it a take or is it a scoop?
Scoop.
Okay. We're the Umberto of Collider.
Yeah, right. I had an informant on the inside. Not going to say who. You're not going to get it out of me. I threw that key away with the rundown of the show. The After Schmoe will come back in its traditional form very soon.
Are you sad about that?
Because the live show is coming back.
The live show will be back. People have been clamoring for it.
Well, I disagree with your reaction because I thought it was kind of funny how many people were like, "Oh, we know, like we saw it coming." I feel like a lot of
really the reaction.
That's what it felt like to me. It felt like they were just kind of like, "Thank God," but also there was a little bit of like, "That's good to hear." Maybe I misinterpreted it.
No one questioned us.
That's what it was.
Yeah,
that's what it was. It was the fact that people were just kind of like, "Okay, good."
I'm appreciative of it. Don't get me wrong. Like I like that. I like that people.
It's just not what I expected.
Yeah, and you know what? And yeah, listen. Let's talk about this. So again, we've spent so much time here recently talking about like a lot of negativity in the community and the fan base, and there's a reason for that. I was thinking about it today. It's sort of like, remember when all the stuff was going on with Warner Brothers and Batfleck and going away and coming back.
Remember when? That was still this week.
Oh yeah, that's right. So people just got over it, but there was a while where it just kept coming up. It was like the #1 topic on Movie Talk, and people just got sick of it. But that's what the show is there to report on. So that's sort of what that's what we're here to report on, is a lot of the drama, not necessarily the drama, that's not the right way to say it, but the temperature of the community. And I just think at this point, like, I'm sort of exhausted with just highlighting those people. And Christian even mentioned something about it. Like, the people who are positive, who are supportive of things, they need to be highlighted as well. And I think when we posted that, I was just anticipating a more negative discussion about it. And it just didn't come. And I'm very thankful for that.
And I shouldn't have worded it that way. I totally misspoke.
Okay.
But I'm glad that we've...
So the live show's not coming back?
No. I'm talking about the fact that people were just not surprised.
Right.
Like, people were just happy, I think. Like, okay, that's glad to hear, but it wasn't as loud as I had anticipated. I think that's where I was a little confused. But anyway, no, the post in Schmoeville magically disappeared.
Did it really?
Interesting.
Did it really?
Yeah.
That's why I was looking for it the other day and I couldn't see it.
It magically disappeared.
Why did it disappear?
It disappeared later that night, and I have theories, but I won't dive into them right now. But yeah, I know for a fact that the live show is coming back, and the last thing I remember is Christian replying with type of GIF, and so I think it's interesting. I know more about his show than he does.
Right. I mean, listen, we're privy to certain knowledge, and I think sometimes there's things that people don't want us to talk about there. Wait, did I say that right? Sometimes there's things that people don't want us to talk about, things that go on there, but sometimes we feel like we have a little bit of responsibility to get this information out there to let you guys know. I mean, I just think that the fan community needed a win.
I agree.
And I don't know if we're going to get flack for it. I don't know if it's something we shouldn't say, but we're here to do a job.
I think it's interesting, and it might have been a little counterproductive that it came from me. But again, like you said, I really wanted to get it out there and make people feel better, because I'd like to think that this show is sort of an outlet, sort of a megaphone from the Schmoeville community, that the people that work in that studio can listen to and can hear. Hopefully we represent the fandom pretty well here. And I also like to think, in a way, we represent sort of their views as well. That way some fans can get on board with what we're trying to accomplish as well, as far as the mentality, sort of losing out on the bratty behavior and just being a little bit more understanding, trying to view their perspective. And Harloff and Ellis did a much better job speaking to that on Harloff and Ellis this week. But I knew that we've all been hurting. And I think that there are some people that listen to the show and think that we're coming from a place of condescension.
Right.
I've been accused of sounding condescending. And maybe if I was, that's not my intention. But also at the same time, I don't know how to deliver some of that stuff any other way. Like,
we're not in the business of breaking scoops. You know what I'm saying? We're not in the business of divulging just things that nobody necessarily knew about, but when that information comes to us, we want to share it as much as possible. I think now is a good time for a little bit of speculation for what this could be. I mean, we're in a new space, we're in a new studio. I don't know what the other side of Collider Studios looks like. I don't even know if there is another side of Collider Studios.
We're not going to know. I guess the first time we're going to get a glimpse as to like where the other set is and like how it's all actually laid out is if we get some kind of behind the scenes tour.
Right.
Or if we start getting Schmoedown matches that were recorded in the new studio, which might take, I don't know, a week or two because they record them in advance. I don't know if you guys knew that or not. Because they hide that for whatever reason. I actually know the reason. It's part of the act and the whole thing. But anyway.
The kayfabe.
They want it to seem like it's in present time. So anyway, once we catch up and get some of those Schmoedowns, then we will be able to assess the layout of the studio a little bit more.
But without the behind-the-scenes stuff that you're talking about, I would assume that the only way we would really get more of a look at the new studio would be via a Schmoedown live show. If we get a if we get a Wanger's table, basically that production setup that they have. I'm anxious to see what Cody's new situation is like over there.
Did you see the end of Harloff and Ellis where Cobster and Cody did that thing?
It could have been anywhere.
Yeah.
But it looked like a nice setup.
It did look nice. It looked very like techie, like Silicon
Modern.
Valley.
Yeah.
It was more modern. Let's just talk about the studio. Let's just dive into it a little bit more. So,
wait, real quick. I do have to bring up one thing.
Okay.
We joked last week.
I was gonna get there. Yeah.
We joked about
right.
I think leading into the move, I maybe painted a different picture for myself.
Maybe
that this thing was gonna look. I mean, it was going to look so much different.
But you could not have known because, again, we've heard the secrecy. Back even when I talked about it on here, when I was trying to tell Schmoeville, like, hey, there's a lot of new stuff coming. The studio was part of that.
Right.
When did we do that show? It was like 2 or 3 months ago.
Right.
It's like they could have been. It's not a big deal that they didn't, but it's not our fault that we expected like a much more grand, new, sparkling set.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like it's the end of the world. I just think it's funny because, and we talked about it off air too, it's like...
Well, the way the conversation went down last week was like, we were talking about it and anticipating it, and then I just had this light bulb go off where I was like, or they could just keep the same ones for now, and then I got disappointed.
Well, no, I mean, what I was gonna say was,
and I'm just being honest about it. Like, when I saw the first episode of Movie Talk, I might have just been looking at it through a magnifying glass to just come up with things that look different and seem different. But of course, I think we take for granted certain aspects of watching the show. Just the camera angles being slightly different made it feel so bizarre to me in a good way. Just like it felt new. It felt fresh.
It didn't feel bizarre to me. I knew that it looked different.
The lighting.
But it was entirely due to the fact, because lighting makes a huge difference.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Guys, lighting makes a huge difference when filming video. That made the lighting in that studio made that image look so much better than it used to in the previous iteration. And they're not new cameras, and I know that for a fact because the camera that's being used as the wide, it's a worse camera.
Yeah, it is.
And that was the one that they were using to shoot.
Use that.
They were, well, I think a camera must have been broken because they reintroduced that a few weeks ago. If you remember the old studio last week, that camera was.
It also looks off balance. I think it's tilted a little bit.
That camera was shooting the right seat for a while, like where Snep usually sits on Movie Talk.
Okay.
So anytime it would cut to that camera, you could tell that it was a lesser one of the older cameras. So I don't know if one of the C100s broke and they had to put that on there. But anyway, they now have that on the wide shot.
Right.
That way all the good-looking cameras can be the medium shots that they have.
At what point didn't
panels.
they have one on like a jib?
That's the one. I mean, that's
okay.
The same camera. They don't use the jib every time per se, but it's still the same wide shot.
Which is hilarious to me because, I mean, we're getting really down to the technical nitty-gritty here. That far right table, I guess it would be their far left, the Schnepp seat, and I think at one point Roka sat there this week, and Ken sat there on Jedi Council when I watched it, but it was a part of a three-person crew. That far right seat looks great. The lighting on it, Schnepp has never looked better.
That's false. He looks better when he has crazier, longer hair.
See, I disagree. I hate when
Schnepp gets
curls.
haircuts.
I love the subtle curls.
I hate when he gets haircuts.
His meat chops are glorious. They're thriving. Sure. They're flourishing, some would say. And
his hair needs like 2 or 3 weeks to grow into the Schnepp that I love, which is reminiscent of John C. Reilly's Steve Brule on Adult Swim.
And Mark has what I like to call the new jean look. And what I mean by that is when you buy a pair of new jeans, they're kind of shiny. They're kind of like glistening. And I don't mean like his skin looks oily or anything like that. I'm not saying that. Mark, you're listening. I love you. What I'm saying is just like the light was bouncing off of his face in ways that I've never seen before. And Christian, he kind of looked the same. I don't really have any takes. He looked the same. He looked good. I mean, everybody just looks so fantastic. The audio, there's a little bit of an echo in that studio.
Right. So what I was going to say is if they had never said anything about moving studios and then they just up and did it,
it just would have looked a little different.
This conversation that you and I would be having, we would be like, so did you notice the echo this week?
Right.
It's really bad. What do you think is up with that? Like that's the only tell right now that they're in a different studio. Right. Is the echo. But yeah, it's interesting. I feel like that's one of those things that you would talk about and sort of be concerned with as you are looking at that space. So I don't know what you can do. I'm sure there's like really expensive. I'm sure there's some. They have windscreens on their mics.
I'm talking about the actual microphones that we use right now.
Oh, maybe a little bit of that too, but they sit farther back from the mics,
they'd have to be right up on it.
They sit far, so I'm sure the input's turned up a little bit because they're sitting back. But you could do what sitcoms do. Like sitcoms have like these big black panels that sit above, and maybe that could help sort of muffle the sound a little bit. I don't know, but that's expensive. So I don't know if that's in the cards right now.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. Listen,
it's not.
This is the job we've been tasked with, to go through this shit with a fine-tooth comb. Right. I want to come back around. I want to talk about the energy level on Movie Talk this week once we saw them be in the new studio, because it's something we sort of speculated about next week, them feeling like there was a new energy, a new vibe to it, because you're typically people would be re-energized by a new location, a new surrounding. And then after that, I want to talk about the experience of seeing the other shows on Collider in this sort of new format, because I think they're different. But did you notice any sort of new energy from the crew when they went live on air? Anything different about their interactions at all?
I did notice that. And the other thing too, I think this was Tuesday, they already had a new guest that we had never seen. They brought Scarpino on, and then at first I thought, wait, where is the studio again? Is this studio closer to different personalities now, to where we're going to see and then I realized that it's like across the street. Yeah. Like they might as well be in the same place in Burbank. As far as I know, maybe we can get some clarification to that. Or maybe I'll find it on Google Maps this week.
I hadn't seen Clark in a while either, which I thought...
Clark was on this week.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I hadn't seen her in a while, which I think is funny, simply because there's a lot of people talking about who is and who
she was on a lot of those Jay Washington episodes.
Was she really? Well, I just feel like for a while she was on quite a bit. There was like a while where like T was on very frequently and whatnot. Seems like they have like a Rolodex of these freelance people that just come on.
You thought T was on frequently? She was on like 4 episodes total.
No, that's not true. There was a while where she was a pretty consistent. Yeah, a pretty consistent member of the panel, and then she started going to like France and stuff like that. Yeah, and seeing the rest of the world.
That's not how I remember it, but
it just seemed like for me at least, maybe I hadn't seen as much Clark. It might have just been the particular episodes.
She's promoting her podcast.
The only day that I just do not really watch movie talk is Friday. Do you have one day in particular that you don't watch?
Yeah, we've talked about this before. It's Friday.
I mean, for me, primarily it's because Friday's a tough day for me to watch movie talk simply because I'm very busy on Fridays. It's also New Music Friday, so I have to prepare for my show on Sight and Sound. So I just don't have a ton of time to devote to that. But yeah, there was a little bit of a new vibe, a little bit of new energy. They weren't going crazy. They weren't like chugging beers or something like that on air, but it just felt like there was a little bit of, I don't know, they just had a little bit of swagger to them that I hadn't seen in a while.
You like that? I thought it was sort of the same, but in a good way. Like I felt it.
More relaxed.
I felt it, but like Christian was still a weirdo. Like anytime Christian is introduced on Movie Talk, he just, it's just a completely unorthodox way of introducing himself.
I don't know if it was because I was paying so much close attention to the changes and whatnot that I found myself picking up on other cues of the show.
Yeah.
That I was just sort of reminded of. Again, we talk about it so much, just how fantastic of a host Mark is at hosting Movie Talk, and specifically with this whole getting rid of buy and sell and bringing in.
What's it
called? Let's debate. What's it called?
Let's talk about this week. The new bit, switch the script. Did you pick up on?
I didn't see that one.
You didn't?
I think I missed that one.
It was on a couple of times this week. It's like the new thing in the middle of the show. You didn't see switch the script?
No.
It's in the middle about where buy or sell is.
But they replaced buy or sell with agree or disagree. That's the one they're pushing.
That, from what I remember, that's still there. Right. But they did switch the script in between that. So basically, it's sort of just a what if scenario. What if the ending of Terminator 2, because they have like an alternate ending where it ends happily ever after for Sarah Connor and them. And so switch the script would just present to the panel, what if Terminator ended this way? Would you prefer it to the original ending or not? Like that was an actual example of what happened. And then they just have a little movie discussion.
Do you like this segment on here? Or does it seem like something that belongs on Movie Talk? Granted, I haven't seen it. It feels
like you're departing from what the rest of the entire show is about. And this is interesting. I mean, I might sound like I don't know how I feel about buy or sell. Like I've talked about it on here before. It just feels like the content that you actually get out of buy or sell doesn't feel any different than the rest of Movie Talk.
Just a different label, yeah.
Yeah, so it doesn't really feel any different.
Which is sort of Christian's point when he was trying to get rid of it. Yeah.
Right, but at the same time, Ellis just introduced this other thing, and you think that I would be more open to that, but it's like in the middle of the show, you're departing from movie news to discuss this random what if scenario in film, and then going right back to movie news. I think it's a little out of place.
Seems like something that would be a great end to the show, like in place of a Twitter question or something.
It could be an ending, or it could just be its own video.
Yeah.
It could just be its own video, and you have a new video series, and you can just throw those out whenever you want.
Right.
So I don't know. I think it's also probably just an experiment. They're probably just trying to figure it out. I don't know. Maybe Ellis did declare this is it from here on out. No, I don't think there was any kind of conversation like that. But
well, I mean, I do like this idea of bringing in new ideas to the show. But we've talked about this before. Like, what is the place of Movie Talk? Is it a debate show? Is it a discussion show? Which are, in my opinion, are two separate things. Is it a movie news show? And it's been a few different things here lately.
But they've been having such great discussion lately.
Agreed. And I think it is down to Mark facilitating some of this stuff. Because some people might not. We talked about it ad nauseum about how he gives people space. One thing that I noticed that I don't think I'd picked up on before is him leading off the answer to a specific topic. I've seen him before bring something up, throw immediately.
Right.
And I don't remember what it was specifically that he was talking about this week. I think it was him. I believe it was the announcement of Zack Snyder being fired from Justice League, that he led off that discussion with a pretty a pretty poignant take.
He's so well spoken when
is.
it comes to social commentary and behaviors. That's something that I value a lot
100%.
with Ellis hosting. Not only is he naturally just a gifted host, but he is arguably the most gifted voice of this entire community when it comes to speaking on these particular matters. The more serious stuff. He's arguably the most funny on the panel, but he can also be the most well-spoken, the most serious when it comes to matters like Zack Snyder getting fired and that sort of I mean, it's just, we talk a lot about the talents of, like, say, Ken Knapsack and things like that, but Mark Ellis, he can do things that other people can't do when hosting that show. I mean, no way the show works the same way without him hosting.
He's got the versatility to where he can hit on a very serious topic, but also flip the script.
I was actually
to a joke.
This is me being slightly hypocritical. I was worried. I shouldn't have been worried. I should have trusted him. I was worried that they were going to continue to keep talking about that journalist and the ethics of him doing that. But I also wanted them, and they eventually got into it. I was like, I kind of just want to hear how you feel about him being fired for this in general, because I think it's shittier on Warner Brothers' part. But not to sort of comment on the story itself, but they eventually got to that. But the only reason why I bring that up is because you mentioned how much they bat around.
Right. And that is
more than once every inning.
Regardless of whether people realize it or not, that is a new vibe of movie talk. It used to be everybody gets their 2-minute spiel about whatever the topic is,
and then
you move on. But there's more crosstalk, and I like that. It feels more. First of all, I think it's fantastic for podcast listeners, which, you know, we can't forget about the people who just take in this content like that. I think it just makes for a more interesting show than just this cut here, cut here, cut here. And to give Christian credit on this whole thing too, one of the things that I value about Christian's presence on these tables is it's crazy to me how much he can stay in the pocket in a very heated debate. Like he can have his point that is just completely off from other people, and I don't mean that in where he's wrong, just like where he's just has a completely different take, and he will never elevate his emotions outside of just, this is my take. If you don't agree, then that's fine. And I feel like Mark might get a little bit more emotional about things, which is fine.
Which is weird, because I think things like trolls and negative comments get to Christian more so. I think it's just different, maybe because he's speaking to his friends, and that no matter what, and I think maybe
Mark plays devil's advocate a little bit more too.
He does.
Yeah.
I guess
makes
with
for a more interesting conversation.
Christian is definitely disciplined when it comes to. I think he knows that he's speaking to his friends.
Right.
There at the panel, but he's also aware that.
It's funny when him and Schnepp get into it, because I'm just like, don't get into it with Schnepp. Just
it sort of hurts your feelings.
It does. Yeah, a little bit.
Guys, don't fight.
Yeah.
I think he's disciplined, but he also knows that he's just talking about fucking movies. And he's brought up that point on Carpool too. It's like,
yeah,
look, if you're gonna get this upset, you're the one that's gonna look like a jackass.
Do you think people like hearing that? I love it. I love that take.
I love it because I don't want seriousness.
Right.
Like if it's a social commentary, something I'm passionate about. I'm very passionate about social issues. So I like when Ellis addresses that. Right. But at the end of the day, I don't want them to take their job seriously. I don't want people getting blocked on Facebook and Twitter for their movie reactions. I want Christian to be aware and realize that, I know we'll talk about him wanting to quit later on.
Yeah.
But I want all of those people to realize that they make a fucking living talking about movies.
Right.
Like, and I'm not mad at Christian.
And they do a good job of that.
The hypothetical question to Christian, and he doesn't need to be asked this question, but since we're bringing it up, I'll just use him as the example.
Right.
Do you want to switch places with me? It's like that's why that's to all of them, not just Christian. It's like whenever that's why I don't want them to take themselves too seriously. I want them to know and be aware of how privileged they are to have this. And there are hustlers and there are grinders, and I'm not taking anything. There are people that work very hard to just get put in front of the camera, and I respect the shit out of that.
And they're aware of that, right?
Yeah.
Like we're talking in a sort of in a vacuum here, in the sense where they're aware of that, and people are entitled to just be kind of fed up with some of the ins and outs of the minutia of their day job, for sure.
Right.
I think you're speaking to a bigger picture sort of thing.
And it's why, and I've touched on it a little bit too. It's why I'm more taken with the YouTube aspect, the more intimacy with YouTube and those personalities, than I am like how serious some of the .com people, like film bloggers and stuff. I don't gravitate to that as much because it's so self-serious. And
actually, I mean, without getting into specifically talking about the topic, I like the dialogue about, because we forget sometimes that they specifically, even though they are reporting on news and this and that, they're not journalists in the same way that Frosty is a journalist or Jeff Snyder is a journalist. But yeah, I sometimes I do think too of like, I don't know, this is just my personal take, but it's just like we're talking about value of a scoop to a movie news journalist. I'm just like, really? Like, I'm sorry,
but also
just saying.
But also, journalism is dying.
100%.
So
yeah, start a podcast.
So in a way, yeah, what they're doing on the YouTube channel on video, that's the new way.
100%.
So I mean,
yeah, you know me. I'm a staunch capitalist.
Just to
what's that? Your blog's dying? We got room for you on Sight and Sound. Fill out an application. No, I'm just kidding. Listen, I think let's talk real quick, because we went a long time on movie talk. Let's talk a little bit about these other shows this week that popped up on Collider. Just how different things looked. I didn't get a chance to see TV Talk. I didn't get a chance to see Heroes.
Heroes was good. Amy Dallin had come back. I feel like I hadn't seen her in a while. But Robert Meyer Burnett is in South Korea right now, so he wasn't there.
Really?
Schnepp went on.
What's he doing over there?
I think he's filming something. He's getting to see some of the Olympics. Aren't the Winter Olympics in South Korea?
I don't know. I haven't watched one.
Did I completely make that up?
No, I think you're right.
Who cares? I haven't seen a single second of the Winter Olympics.
Sean
White did something and then got accused of sexual misconduct. There you go.
Really?
Yeah.
Come on, old Red.
I shouldn't laugh.
Well, it's
absurd.
It's absurd that that's your knowledge of the Winter Olympics. It's like that's the extent of it.
Right.
That guy that's at all of them did something shitty.
Yeah. Anyway, Robert Meyer Burnett is in South Korea. And,
so how many people did we get at the table on Heroes?
It was well they do it twice a week now.
Right.
So Monday it was Schnepp, Joel, and Coy Jandrew. I don't know if I actually know how to pronounce his
Great to
last
see
name. Joel
on some stuff this week.
And then Wednesday was Amy and Roka, and Schnepp did a 20-minute rant against Warner Brothers, and I tweeted it out. I was like, I would pay so much money to witness John Schnepp sitting down with Warner Brothers executives and just getting to lay it all out. Oh my God. That would be such a fascinating thing to witness.
Can I ask you a question? Do you ever, I know you're a big fan of Heroes, and I know we do get it 2 times a week, but do you ever wish that they had more than an hour to spend on things? And I don't want to get into a whole discussion about daily and all this stuff, but do you ever wonder what the show would feel like if they were sort of free of time constraints? The only reason I'm asking is because Jedi Council this week was about an hour and 23 minutes.
Yeah.
Which is, it's strange for them to do something like that.
If you go back and listen to older episodes of the show, I flip-flop.
Yeah.
Like at first I like the idea of going down, but it's also because we're assessing what makes the most sense to the channel.
And what's topical, right?
Because at first we're like, of course going daily makes sense. And then when we realize that it's not working out, then we're able to be like, well, that was a fun experiment. This is the better way. So
I don't know if it's like this or not. I don't know if it's the case, but I mean, do you agree that maybe the shows should feel a little bit more flexible?
Well, to answer your question, the original question, I don't know. Yes and no.
Right.
If an episode should only be 45 minutes, then fine. If there's not a whole lot to talk about, if it's an all Twitter question episode, then I'm fine with whatever. I think that you should just let the show be the show. So if it does become an hour, 20 minutes, so be it. I get annoyed by the time constraint when they look over and just skip over Twitter questions because someone's flagging them down. We got to end this show.
Right.
Because visibly, and this is something that Christian spoke on as well, we don't get to see all of the things that happen behind the scenes. It's like, why is there a time constraint? What else are you doing?
Right.
There was no other video uploaded today. Like, why can't you just let them do 10 minutes of Twitter questions? Like, those questions are raised for me. Right. Why can't you tack on that extra 10 minutes of Twitter questions? Why do you have to just immediately leave? I mean, I have those questions sometimes. I think that I would like to know why a show can't breathe a little bit in that particular instance. But at the same time, you could argue, and their argument might be, we don't need to hear Snap rant for 10 minutes about Warner Brothers again. Right. So, I mean, I know there's a little bit of that, but I don't get why it's so strict.
I'm also curious
when it's a matter of 10 to 15 minutes.
I'm curious to know how much actual production is going on sort of behind the camera while, you know, if somebody's giving like the wrap it up signal and stuff like that.
I brought it up.
Right.
I think either last week or the week before. I'll bring it up again because I still don't know what it means to produce Heroes.
Right.
I don't know what it means.
Right.
I don't know what it means. I don't know if somebody
maybe just
also,
like a show structuring.
I also
like
don't know what it means to produce Jedi Council. Like, it just, I don't know what that means when you say that to me. I produce Collider Heroes. What is that?
But what you mean by that is essentially like you don't know what goes. Obviously, we know that there is prep that goes on beforehand to organize the stories.
I like the idea, and I don't know if they do this for all of their shows. I know that they do it for Movie Talk. I think they do a pre-production meeting before Movie Talk, and they go through the stories. And I think everyone gives a little bite and a little taste of their take, so that they know how to pass the ball around. How Ellis knows how to, so he knows how to host the show. That's what I get from it. I think they already know each other's opinions on it, which I actually think is a smart way of doing it. It makes the show feel more professional too, just because they're more polished when they're speaking.
It's quicker,
They know what they're going to say.
Especially when you have a rotating panel of people.
And you can be thinking about a different perspective and play a devil's advocate role if you wanted to. I think that's a really smart thing to do. I don't know if you do that across the board on all your shows. I just don't have that knowledge. Maybe we'll find out this week. But I don't know what it means in the sense that, again, I just think it's compiling news stories. I get what Riley does, but when it comes to, I don't know if Jedi Council has a producer, but I was just always under the impression that it's Christian putting the stories together, and you just turn on a camera.
And you just like to know more about what they do.
I get what Cody does. I get with the engineers and all that. I don't know what it means to produce.
Yeah, I mean, on the topic of show links and this and that, I sort of just sit on the side of if a show needs to go longer, let it go longer. If it needs to be shorter, let it go shorter. Just obviously we don't need something going on for 3 fucking hours.
There were episodes of Collider Heroes during the Campia era that were like 2.5 hours.
Really?
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah. I watched every second of them too. But but no, we don't need that weekly.
I mean, but we also, that's sort of how we feel about things too. If the conversation warrants continuing, then continue. Right. But if we're just sitting there like, well, what the fuck are we going to talk about?
But again, like we said, we're talking about 10 more minutes of Twitter questions.
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
What does the 10 minutes do to your day?
Right.
I don't know. So you can have another meeting?
Yeah.
I just don't have enough context as to what's going on behind the scenes for that to know for sure. So
cut a little bit of Jedi Council before going on the air here today. Interesting. It's just it's fascinating to watch the shows that we've seen so much of and just be different. Having the 3-person table, the cameras being a little bit closer to them was just interesting. But guys, listen, Christian, man, I love you. We get it that you're a Star Wars show. You got to get some of that shit off the disc. All right. Your poor guest. We were shooting through the shit on the table.
The opening shot of Jedi Council on Christian, someone is removing a toy from the frame while the show is happening.
I just like the thought that they set it all up, checked the cameras and all this stuff.
Did they check the cameras?
Well, I'm just saying. I like the thought that they checked it, but then as soon as they went on air, somebody thought to themselves, that might be too much. I just started pulling.
They just pulled one Neon Numb off the table,
like that old 1940s guy that had the stick that pulled the comedian off the stage. It was just like pulling shit
at
off.
the Apollo.
Yeah, it's just like, do we need all of that? How much? I asked you this off air. How much stuff did they have for Heroes?
You leave absolutely nothing.
Was that John Roca producing the show? Just like, I've got to make a call. Get all this stuff off.
The only thing on the desk are MacBooks,
right?
And Dennis's Chromebook.
I get like a Jawa or a Wookiee.
There's a Jabba right in front of that poor girl's face,
or a Stormtrooper, but it's just like all of it. I mean, there was like a whole Comic-Con toy chest
Comic-Con
of stuff sitting there. It's like, are you trying to have like an auction?
So was the show? So was the
My God.
So was the show good?
The show was fantastic. This one, more than any episode that of anything Collider that I've seen in a long time, it felt more like a podcast. It also felt more like a Schmoe show, just because you had Ken. It felt like an old school Toad Hop episode of Schmoes back when Mark was traveling for comedy, and it was like Ken and Christian interviewing somebody, and they got into some fantastic conversations and discussions that aren't 100% discussions that you would always hear on Jedi Council, like some things that were a little bit more social issues and topics that I found fascinating. And, I went through the comments and I saw some absolute dog shit garbage in there. But I think at the end of the day, I champion this. I champion these shows just, again, going wherever they feel like they need to go. And I applaud. First of all, it could not have been a better table, because you had Christian, who didn't fully agree with every single point that his guests had brought up on some articles that she had written. I think her name is Shailene or Shayla. I can't remember. I apologize. But so he was, they were having a nice debate and a nice discussion and educating each other on both sides of their argument. You had Ken being that sort of third individual, but also bringing the knowledge that he brings to the table with his Game of Thrones stuff. They were talking about Weiss and Benioff and the Star Wars news. But it was so rich in conversation.
Good.
And I really, really appreciated it. And I appreciated everybody just sort of being aware that it was good. At no point did I really feel like anybody was like, all right, let's get out of this. They let the show breathe. And I appreciated that.
I just want to let everyone know, if you didn't notice, Ken Knapsack was at the desk.
Right.
There's that. Also presented by Boost Mobile. Awesome.
Love it.
That's all I got, really.
Yeah.
About Collider, I think that I can think of.
We did get we had the Schmoedown with Bruce Campbell.
I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it.
That's
either.
tomorrow.
Is it tomorrow? I thought I saw something for it. It might have been something else for it.
It comes out the day that After Schmoe comes out.
That's right. I'm sorry. We did get a ladies' night with Bruce Campbell.
Right. We got the ladies' night. That was good. Sinead was there.
I actually didn't get a chance to watch the entire episode. I caught it and then I had to go to lunch. But anyways, great to see guests coming on. One funny thing, just something to just let everybody else out there know. We had people in our Sight and Sound Facebook group literally ask us how we know who Bruce Campbell is. Obviously, I know him from Evil Dead and all that stuff. And it's just funny to see that sort of... it's always fascinating to be reminded of what the age demographic is of some of the stuff. But I like that. I like seeing people come into the studio and all that stuff. I'm excited to see what the future holds if they decided to keep on that trajectory as well.
That reminds me of how you said on Sight and Sound weekly that people need to get over Alden Ehrenreich being the new Han Solo.
Yeah.
I watched the Solo trailer in the theater tonight before Black Panther.
Right.
You know what I've decided?
What's that?
I've done another 180. I don't think it's a good trailer.
You don't think it's a good trailer at all? Okay, it doesn't matter. Why are we talking about this right now?
To piss people off. Okay.
Harloff and Ellis. These guys.
Talk about just sitting around doing a podcast. They didn't even intro themselves. Oh, it's the Harloff and Ellis Show. went right into it.
I loved this week's episode.
I did too.
Loved every second of it. It felt so, and especially with the live show coming back, it feels like it set itself apart. It feels like something else. It feels like something...
Because the live show is coming back.
Right. It doesn't need to replace something. It feels like its own thing. And I like it, man. I like seeing these guys talk and shoot the shit.
It's so weird. We've talked a little bit about this. How fascinating it is to realize that these people, like, they hang out. They're working together. So when they leave... they're not really talking to each other as friends, maybe outside. Like, they email each other.
Yeah.
And there are still... my point is, when you sit down with Harloff and Ellis for an hour, I'm watching all of these shows. They've done, what, like 5 now? Pretty much every conversation they have about their past or about their mutual friends, I think to myself, how is it that they've never had this conversation before? Isn't that funny?
Well, I think we forget that most of the time spent, and Christian could correct me, I guess, if he wants to. I mean he can, but I could be correct or incorrect on this. I think most of Schmoe's content outside of movie reviews and whatnot has been both of them with other people around,
right?
Having to share their time.
It's that it's interviewing other people, and it's just movie takes,
right?
And reviewing movies. And we've talked so much about how valuable it is to us to see them just to sit down and enjoy each other.
Yeah.
But even that, there are still some levels of, how have you guys been friends for 10 years or whatever it is? Well, that's how long Schmoes has been around. Maybe not necessarily how long they've been friends. It gets a little muddy when I try to think about that kind of stuff. But there are some things that get brought up on the show that I'm like, man, I can't believe you guys are telling this to you. But at the same time, you get to watch them just hang out and enjoy each other, make each other laugh, and that's one of the great things about this thing. And I hope that it continues.
It's also
go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's also a good platform, I think, to, I think from time to time, I'm sure everybody there would love to just talk about other things besides movies. What a fantastic...
like the fandom.
Well,
that's what they said at the top.
Even that, even outside of that, I think it's a great platform to just talk about whatever the hell they want. I mean, I know at one point, it was the Schmoes No movie show, and they did away with that. It was just the Schmoes No show. And that was sort of the goal, was just to be a little bit more free to talk about, whatever they want. But I feel like this show specifically is catered towards that, to just whatever is on your mind, just talk. And I like that. I appreciate that. I think the space needs that.
God, hearing Christian talk about his humor as a kid.
What an awful kid.
The pranks that he used to do on...
What a nightmare.
That reminds me of me. I was the class clown. I was... You're rolling your eyes.
Not rolling my eyes.
I'm not saying that what I did was as funny as what he did. I'm just saying that that's how I acted. I don't think anybody appreciated it.
I'm always curious as people's perception of themselves in that regard, and how other people perceive them. Like, it could have been in high school, people were annoyed as shit with him.
Sure.
Doing that stuff.
Yeah. But him talking about every time his teacher turned around, moving the desk closer and closer to the teacher without them noticing. I had those exact same moments in school.
Right.
I did the exact same stuff. And it was hilarious to me, whether it was funny to other people or not. But anyway, getting to hear them do a little bit of that. And I always forget, too. I forget that Ellis went to Catholic school. And I relate to that as well. I went to Catholic school. Nuns were kind of out by the time I got there. But it was funny to hear him mention that he had a nun.
There were no nuns.
Yeah.
No nonsense.
Never got hit with a ruler or anything like that. He might have, but not my generation. Not the generation that has Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo.
Right.
I thought it was weird to see them drink Kroger bottled water.
Was that what that was specifically? At one point, that when they turned the label, I thought, that looks like Kroger water, but I don't know 100% if it is.
The reason why, people are probably wondering why. Where Jay and I come from, we have Hardee's. If you go where Christian and Mark are right now, they have Carl's Jr.
Curls Jr.
The name, I thought that isn't there a grocery store called Publix? What is it called?
Publix. It's in Florida. And other places too, I'm sure. But every time I go to Florida, I go to Publix. Publix with an X.
All I know is we have Kroger. There's a Kroger across the street from where we are right now.
The biggest in the world.
I didn't think that they had a Kroger there. That was cool. That was interesting. Doesn't deserve to be brought up on After Schmoe, but I felt like it was.
Ellis, I'm going to start calling this out. The Ellis is annoyed watch. It came up when Christian wanted to discuss the salt in the Dasani water. And I just thought of all the times he seemed like so over the conversation before it started.
Well, because for one, that's not the first time we've heard that. Maybe he might have done that on Carpool, to be fair.
Yeah.
I've heard Christian talk about it before.
No Carpool this week.
But that's also one of those things that I've known that tidbit for a long time. So I thought, well, maybe Ellis actually knew this all along.
Yeah.
And he was just kind of over that because Christian was so happy to like give that information to the people. Like, guys, he made it like a PSA. Like,
right.
Look,
make sure you know.
The next time you buy a Dasani at the movie theater, is that where you're going to buy the Dasani?
Probably where I would buy Dasani, honestly.
You could buy Dasani at the Pubics.
So one of the fascinating things about this week's episode was, I think from week to week, I had been anticipating the type of conversation we got surrounding the fandom, and it seemed like we got it at just an interesting time. Like finally when they moved and this and that, it just seemed like it would have happened before that, which is fine. I mean, I wouldn't have cared if they ever did it, but I was just waiting for it. I thought they handled the discussion so well, and I was actually surprised with how candid they sort of got with everything.
It goes back to the point we made earlier about like Christian being very disciplined, and it's funny to see him get annoyed at the things that he gets annoyed at, but at the same time when he's speaking about this kind of stuff and Ellis shares this same viewpoint, they made it clear they understand people have questions.
Yeah,
they understand the speculation surrounding Collider Video and Schmoedown and how everything, we're sort of in this transitional phase right now with the community. They get all of that.
They were being very objective about everything.
They were being very, exactly. They didn't seem to be, I'm not saying that they aren't annoyed by it, but the kind of conversation they were having, it didn't feel like it was entirely driven by their emotion behind it all, because they could. I mean, it
was a very refreshing conversation.
To be fair, I'm sure it is frustrating for them, and we could have done this talking about Ken too. I don't know. We didn't really get into it, I don't think, but part of where I was when we were talking about Ken, it's like at the end of the day, however that Ken situation was handled, it was handled by some of his closest friends.
Yeah.
And that's got to be tough on all of them.
Right.
Not just Ken. It's got to be tough on all of them. And I think it's probably tough for Christian and Mark to work so hard on something and want that positive reaction, and all they get are questions and criticisms. I'm sure that's extremely frustrating. So for them to be able to come out and just sort of have that open, objective discussion on this episode, I thought it was great, and I think that hopefully Schmoeville should feel a little bit more at ease than anything you and I could do, because it's coming straight from the horse's mouth from them on this episode. But if you can't understand where they're coming from after that, they talked about the fact that there are legal issues, there are things that prevent them from being able to be up front.
Well, we forget sometimes that, well, we don't necessarily forget. I think people forget sometimes that this is a company. This is a business. They have to pay taxes on this thing. And and there are not only legal things that have to take place with human resources and all of that, but these are also just people's lives. Like sometimes you just can't discuss the ins and outs of every single thing, as much as it is an internet show, as much as it feels personal, as much as you feel like it's something that you can put in your pocket.
I can do it right now.
Fair. Just because you feel that way doesn't necessarily mean that you're entitled to it, and this doesn't need to get into an entitlement conversation.
Yeah, I don't want to do it.
It's just have some empathy for these people, and just know that they're trying really, really, really hard.
I thought the discussion on this was so good.
Yeah.
That if you are still at a loss as a fan after that kind of conversation, I don't know what else can be done for you.
Right.
Like,
that's true.
I agree.
And
I'm not saying that they laid out all these answers for us. They did not. But if you're not at ease or just a little bit more comfortable with the situation in general, I don't know what else can be done for you.
Yeah, I think
I thought they did that great of a job.
I guess my message to the guys and just the people over at Collider, it's sort of been interesting because obviously we're privy to the conversation because we pay close attention to it, and also we get some of the conversation as a reaction to what we talk about on the show in the comment section, this and that, people talking to us on Twitter. But we have a collection of people that pay attention to Sight and Sound and whatnot that cross over from Schmoeville into our space, and they're overwhelmingly, I think, positive, not in the sense where they're just like buying everything we're selling, but they're more objective, they're more reasonable with things. And all I can say to fans out there that listen to this who are giving the benefit of the doubt and being positive and they're not overtly negative about things is that there is a community out there. Don't feel like you're alone in feeling, feeling positive about things or optimistic about things. There is a community of fans out there. Do not let the negativity drown out your good feelings about things. And if you do feel aggrieved by it, that's fine too. But I just think having a healthy respectfulness and understanding of all of these things going on would just be the best for everybody.
Well said. A funny observation to get a little bit lighter. I love when Christian ends up telling Ellis about the Schmoedown. Have you picked up on this? When Harloff is like, because when I'm watching the show, I'm thinking those are the two creators of the movie Trivia Schmoedown. So it's funny when Harloff is like, so Ellis, we have this live show coming up.
Right.
and Ellis is like, oh, okay, that's the one with Makuga and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yes. It's like Ellis. He's telling the audience and Ellis about what's coming up on the Schmoedown. I've picked up on that a couple of times. I think it's kind of funny. I don't know why Ellis would fake it. It has to be
no,
real.
For sure. Well,
it has to be real.
I get it. Like,
why would he fake and not knowing about the Schmoedown?
I mean, Christian is as invested in this, I think, as he's ever been, and rightfully so. He's got this Patreon thing. He's got a lot to feel proud of, and I think I think maybe he forgets sometimes of what he shared and what he hasn't shared.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I don't remember.
It's got to be tough.
I don't remember what specifically. I think it was Schmoedown related. He said something like, "Oh, we just announced. Actually, did we announce it? Well, I guess we're announcing it now." I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's a lot to keep track of in your mind.
Especially when you're 2 weeks behind or ahead, I guess. You're 2 weeks ahead of everybody.
It's got to be tough. I'm wondering,
how has that never slipped?
Somebody he's talked about it before. He's broken kayfabe before on like Carpool and whatnot, but I've always been curious of whether or not with like promoting matches, if he tells people, make sure you don't talk about this, act like it's coming up this week, and if he sends a memo out to people like, hey, just so you know your match is going to air this week, make sure to promote and act and get in your tiffs and whatnot.
So much.
I wonder if he's going to get mad that we're talking about it like it's real to me, damn it.
No. It's got to be a lot. I mean, I don't know why he would get mad. We're praising how hard it is to do something like this, keep up with all this. Because if you think about it too, are these Bruce Campbell matches involving Ash vs. Evil Dead? How
do they throw off the schedule?
Exactly. Yeah. How far along are they and all of the other stuff that they have going on? And then all of a sudden Stars is like, hey, promote this. It's like, do you get a heads up when the Power Rangers want to do a Schmoedown? Because those are filmed very recently to their release date. Well,
I know via Carpool, he's talked before about how hard it is to schedule things and like how much he wants to announce things. And he's literally gotten down to the wire, and at the last second, the rug's pulled out from under him.
Exactly. Because he used to put out like, and maybe he still does, he used to put out images of like the next 2 months of matches.
Right.
But if somebody comes a call, and all of that will get pushed forward a week.
Yeah.
So that they can do things like this Bruce Campbell thing.
Yeah.
It's got to be tough. We talked a whole lot about the transitional stuff and the up in the airness, but was it interesting to you that Christian thought about quitting all of it?
No.
Certainly not when he chooses a life in Maui over what he's doing now. That I can understand.
I mean, honestly, I just thought it was a very human thing to discuss. I mean, I think we've all been in the position, especially for a job that we've done for a long time, where we've kind of just thought about, is this worth it? Questioning other opportunities and this and that. I've thought about it here on After Schmoe many times, just quitting, but no, I haven't. I haven't been doing it long enough to quit. I give it another 6 months.
You've been doing it for a year. It's like almost our anniversary together.
Whatever. I don't like living in the past. But I thought it was a very honest thing. And I mean, I could easily see some people being like discouraged by like, oh, great, Christian's checking out now? I might as well just unsubscribe. It's just like, just let him be a guy.
Well,
or a person in general.
I got to thinking, though, hypothetically, where would Christian Harloff go if all of that was gone?
Kentucky.
Because Ellis would be fine. Let's be real.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Ellis isn't part-time at Collider. They could still do schmoes and just put out movie reviews. And they sort of talked about what it might be like if they did schmoes just kind of a slightly different way, putting out a review a little bit later in the week or whatever. But he's got a stand-up career, and his stand-up career might even flourish even more so. What would Christian do? I don't know why.
I give it 2 weeks before he's doing carpools from Maui. And
I asked when I first interviewed Ellis back in January of 2015, before I started doing After Schmoe, I asked him this question, not knowing. I thought, is everybody in this space doing this because they eventually want to be filmmakers?
Right.
Like, are these guys all film school rejects, pun intended? They want to get in this space, build an audience, build a brand so that they have a little bit of leverage, ownership and leverage, Gary V, to create content.
Arbitrage.
Is Christian Harloff, based on his position at Collider Videos and the audience that he has, is he more likely, probably not, but is he more likely to be able to produce television? Is he more likely to finish his He-Man script and get it actually made, since they just lost a director? It's like, does Christian Harloff go back into the studio system? Can he go actually work for Lucasfilm? Like, those are the things that I was thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to. This is all pure speculation. I'm based off of what I've seen of him, what limited conversations I've had with him. I think Christian's one of these individuals that is a serial entrepreneur in the sense where of just creativity, where he's constantly got to be creating something. And obviously you can do that on a level you're talking about, in like some sort of production role or whatnot. But I think he's always going to want to. So if we talk about building a personal brand, it sounds very like self-centered and this and that. But I mean, speaking for me personally, I think you're very similar. We just like making shit.
Yeah.
Period. And I think he falls into that category. Not that Mark doesn't, but I think he fulfills that with stand-up already. I mean, we've had conversations with him personally where it's just like stand-up is his passion and this and that. All this other stuff is great too, but that is something he loves. And I think Christian, I would give it a month before he just started his own separate podcast. He brought Harloff podcast back, or he even tried stand up again. Like, he would be doing something. Like my dad, I don't think I could ever see my dad retiring.
Right. It's
just not the type of person he is.
Do you think Christian's friend that's in jail is a Finstock?
I thought you were going to ask me, do you think his friend in jail, do you think he watches Collider? Do you think he thinks they're going down the tubes?
Oh man.
How do you feel? Is his friend Robert Meyer Burnett? Remember that joke that Robert Meyer Burnett went to jail or something like that? Was that
no?
There was like,
what are you talking about?
There was something they just like in passing said something like on Collider one day that was like, oh yeah, Robert Meyer Burnett went to jail for a night, and I was like, what?
Oh, what? I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know. It just came up randomly.
I don't know what it was, but I found out that RMB had a YouTube channel, and I looked back at his uploaded videos. He had uploaded this video of some news footage where I found out he's been adopted. Okay. and his sister was adopted by another family. I think this is how it went. Regardless, the news footage showed him reuniting with a long-lost sister, and it was like on the news.
Right.
I thought that was an incredible story, and it was nuts that had happened to him.
Yeah.
Go look it up. I didn't tell it correctly.
Link in the description below.
Yeah, right. Robert Meyer Burnett's long-lost sister.
The most random thing ever.
It kind of made me cry a little bit.
All right, well.
I only have one more point.
All right, let's go.
And I wanted to end on this.
I'm going to give you the Roca.
Right. Yeah,
wrap it up.
We're 4 minutes over here. I wanted this to be the last thing that I said because I don't think there's any speculation involved. I don't know if I need to expand on this thought. It kind of speaks for itself. They're putting up the Schmoedown matches on the Schmoes Know podcast feed now. No.
I like it.
No.
Oh, you're going to make Christian mad.
No. The Schmoedown,
Yeah.
no ifs, ands, or buts, requires its own podcast feed.
Okay.
Do not.
Right.
I will fund the hosting of the Schmoedown podcast. Just put it up on its own podcast feed.
So
it doesn't make any sense at all. The Schmoes know, and I'm saying this as someone who takes up some of the space
right
on the Schmoes Know podcast feed. The Schmoes Know podcast feed is bloated as it is.
Right.
I'm not speaking to the quality of the content. The quality of the content's there. The consistency is there. But
it's giving a lot of stuff for people to sift through.
But JTE Movie thinks is on the same day as After Schmoe. What the hell is that? You do not want or need, maybe it gets to place, you do not need to put the Schmoedown on the SK podcast feed. It is bigger than that. It requires its own feed. Make it happen.
My only take on this is the fact that I agree it could exist on its own feed, but I also understand why if you are launching something like that, you can launch on something with a backbone to get people interested. I mean, listen, just to be fair, there may be people who listen to the Schmoes Know feed who have never stepped foot on their YouTube channel or on Collider,
right?
Anything like that. So I get that. I get why you would want to expose it to people on that feed, but if the goal eventually is to move it off onto its own thing. But in fairness too,
then do both.
In fairness too, it also could be a potential gateway for people to come to the podcast feed. I mean, potentially, if somebody is just like randomly stumbles upon this movie trivia Schmoedown thing, which is unlikely just because of how podcasts work, but
I can get on board with what you're saying.
Right.
I don't think that's their approach. I think their approach is not wanting to pay for another podcast.
I don't necessarily know if it's that or if it's just like, hey, let's just take this audio and put it in a podcast.
Well, if that's the case, then we don't have to argue about it because then just do both. But you need to like if you're going to put it up as a podcast, it needs to be its own. So if you want to do that whole cross promotional thing, okay, then do both. But it needs to have its own. Is what I'm still arriving at.
I mean, I think that should be the goal.
Someone brought up that they should quit calling it Schmoedown.
Yeah, that's dumb. Sorry, guy.
I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I don't think they need to do it. I don't think they need to make any rash decision and just completely change it. I don't care if they can always call it Movie Trivia Schmoedown. I'm just saying I think his logic is sound.
I mean, it could be called anything. I think is the logic, but I mean, who cares? I think is really the point of it. Is like you want to grow a brand. I mean, the brand is like
no.
Do you know there's people out there that do not realize that UFC is not a sport? UFC is not a sport.
Oh, Christian's going to get pissed at you.
MMA is a sport.
I know.
But people associate. So, I mean, if somebody just, I mean, I don't know if you can really transfer it over. It's like if we started our own movie trivia league, it's like, oh, you guys competing in Schmoedown over there? It's like, no, I don't know if that's going to happen.
Well, I mean, think about why are we here, Jay?
But that could be a goal.
We're talking about a movie review channel called Schmoe's No.
I mean, I get it. I get how branding works.
No, I'm not arguing with you.
No.
I'm just highlighting the fact that
right.
There are people that are nitpicking the name Movie Trivia Schmoedown. We're talking about a movie review channel just called Schmoe's No. What the fuck is that? I don't know, but you figured it out. Collider?
It's branding.
Collider doesn't have anything to do with entertainment.
Listen, we know that Sight and Sound is the only name that actually makes sense.
It's also the one that's been used by multiple companies and all across the world.
Get off our nuts, Spotify. Anyways, where can they find you online?
Oh, you're ending the show?
Yeah, I'm really fucking tired right now. I'm trying to kick you out of my house.
I get it. It's late. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at WhatUpSnell. We have our bread and butter, Jay, is Sight and Sound. You can see what we're doing by listening to the Sight and Sound podcast feed. You can subscribe to the Sight and Sound YouTube channel. Someone said that they're watching it more than Collider. So definitely go check out and see what all the buzz is about. And Facebook group, you can hang out with us, be a part of the community. Jay Williams, where can people find you?
Find me at Jay Williams, J to the A to the Y to the E on Twitter and Instagram. It's the same for both. Every single Friday, I'm breaking down all the new music releases on Sight and Sound Music. So come and hang out with me. Our YouTube channel is just filled with delicious, tasty content. Sight and Sound's also in business of creating new shows. I've got a new show called More Than Music. It's sort of like a serial, sort of like a true crime podcast, but just replace true crime with music biographies and interesting stories about music. That is dropping on February 27th. It's going to be 4 episodes for season 1. So if you are interested in something like that, come and hang out with us at Sight and Sound. That's all I've got.
Okay, very good.
All right, let's get the hell out of here. Goodbye. Get all that shit off the table, Jedi Council. Goodbye.